Good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to this month's Business and Culture Committee. Due to the sitting chair, Conor Heaney, Councillor Heaney, not being available today, he's got me in the hot seat, so hopefully everything will go as planned and as well. So I'll just pass over to Stephen now to do the notice and summons on meeting and members' attendance, and apologies.
So, members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Business and Culture to be held remotely Tuesday, the 11th of January at 4 p.m. Just take the attendance. So, Councillor Jason Barr.
Here.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Here, Stephen.
Alderman Morris Devaney.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Gary Donnelly. Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Sean Harkin. Councillor Patricia Logue.
Yo, Stephen.
Councillor John McGowan.
And Shaw, Stephen.
Councillor Keir Maguire. Alderman David Ramsey.
Here.
And Councillor Sinai Barr. Thank you, members.
Stephen. So next on the item is item number 3, declarations of members' interests. You can do that now or as the item appears throughout the schedule via the chat box. Okay, so item number 4 is the statement of remote meetings. I would like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and the media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to have only their mics on, cameras on while speaking at the meeting, and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use of storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website at www.derrystrabane.com. So, with the formalities out of the way, as they say, we'll move on now to item number 5, which will be a presentation which we will get from representatives from the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group. So for those who don't know, the Co-Delivery Group was established as a non-statutory advisory body to oversee the implementation of the Derry City and Strabane District Council Arts and Culture Strategy from 2019 to 2024. The Co-Delivery Group also includes strategic partners supported by Derry City and Strabane District Council officers and the following elected members, which I'll call out. So that's the elected members are Councillor Heaney, Councillor Cusack, Alderman Work, Alderman Guy, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Harkin, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Raymond Barr, and Councillor Farrell. So with all that being said, I'll now pass you on. I'll welcome first Kevin Murphy and Steve Batts, who will give us our presentation here today. So I'll pass over to yourselves. They're meant to take us through it. Thank you.
Apologies, forgive me for being unmuted there. Just thank you very much for the welcome. Good to be here. I'm Kevin. I'm the chair of the Co-Delivery Group, and also we're joined by Lisa Heaney, who's also a member of the Co-Delivery Group. I'd just like to pass on to Steve, who leads on this in the lobbying subgroup. Steve.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes, everybody can hear. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Just like to thank the committee very much for the invitation to present this. and in such short order, I think it's appropriate that we should present now for reasons that will become maybe clear in the presentation. There are 4 of us, including Mickey Cooper and Kevin and Lisa and myself. Actually, Tom Maguire's are 5 of us, 5 including me, on the lobbying subgroup of the co-delivery group. And we've been tasked with representing the interests of the arts and culture broader community of the City and District region as part of the co-delivery group. There's a part of the arts and culture strategic plan refers to that. So we've been in the process of lobbying around the issue of the structural inequalities, particularly in relation to our geographical area over the past year or so. And there's a slide presentation which everybody should have got. Is it possible for that to be brought up, or do I need to ask Kevin to put that on his screen or to share it? I understood that we would get that on the host screen. Is that possible?
Sure, you know, give me a second.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to give a short slide presentation to tell you about the process that we've been through lobbying over the period of the past year or so, and where we stand in relation to that now, and some thoughts about where we should go into the future with that. So could you bring up slide number 3, please? We'll start there because the other, yeah. So the background of this is that the lobbying subgroup is charged with progressing the strategic action 6C of the arts and culture strategy, as you can see on the slide. We have had some initial progress to date, particularly in December 2020. There was a meeting initiated by the Council, Derry City and Strabane District Council, and supported by the co-delivery group, and the concern was with the conditions around COVID-19 primarily. There was a wide representation from the sector, including artists and organisations, as well as local politicians at that meeting, which was held online. And initially that meeting was about COVID challenges, but it became very clear from the responses in that the major issues for people in the arts sector were actually more structural, and that the specifically COVID related issues were related to those structural issues. So the decision was taken to pursue representation through the development of a discussion paper related to the issues that were brought up in that initial meeting. And so what we did was we prepared a discussion paper, quite a substantial discussion paper, in consultation, constant feedback from arts sector colleagues, about 30 or plus organisations which were involved in that. And we developed a discussion paper, which we then prepared into a form which we could submit appropriately. Could you bring up the next slide, please? That would be great. Thank you. So the timeline over the last year has been, as you see in front of you, we had this initial meeting, which is the 18th of December 2020, and then out of that we were developing a discussion paper about issues primarily around what were perceived as, very strongly perceived as, structural inequalities in arts resourcing, the experience of people working in the sector in the Northwest region. On the 29th of January, we had a meeting with councillors and MLAs, the lobbying subgroup did, and out of that meeting came that Martina Anderson MLA organised a meeting with Minister Deirdre Hargey to discuss these issues, to address these issues. And immediately after that, we submitted this discussion paper to Minister Hargey and also to the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. We had a meeting with the Minister in February, 24th of February. And then on the outcome of that, at the invitation of Minister Hargie, we were invited to meet senior officials at the Department for Communities, which we did on the 15th of April. After this, we went to these were all online. We talked to the senior staff at the Arts Council Northern Ireland on the 4th of May. And then we joined a meeting on the 25th of May, which was with the Derry City Council and the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, which was addressing other issues around distribution of emergency funding related to COVID and the perception that that had been distributed very strongly towards Belfast organisations. So we that was on the 25th of May. After all those meetings, we decided that the important thing to do was to develop a submission to the Department for Communities for consideration in the development of the terms of reference and substantive content of an arts and culture strategy. And that was because in the meeting with Minister Hargie on the 24th of February, we were informed that there was a plan to develop, incipient plan to develop an arts and culture strategy, although it was rather on the long finger because of the COVID crisis, and it remains, I think, on the long finger. So we had, could you give me the next slide, please? That'd be great. Yeah, so we had positive responses to the discussion paper from Minister Hargie. She explicitly acknowledged the structural problem in the meeting verbally, and we had also confirmation of that in slightly less explicit terms in a formal letter from her office. And she acknowledged the need to address the issue that there is a structural imbalance historically and built in terms of where resources go in Northern Ireland, specifically in relation to the Derry City Council area. She invited us, very positively invited us to meet officials in the DFC to discuss the matter, which we did. Our meeting with the DFC officials outlined the intention and the possible timescale for development of the arts and culture strategy. We were given the indication that the terms of reference would begin to be developed before the end of 2021, which hasn't happened as far as we know, largely due, I think, to the COVID crisis. The intention, we were told, was that that should be a co-design, co-delivery model, which we responded back positively to, having had that experience of doing that in the development of the arts and culture strategy for the city and district here. The two officials we met there, it's John Ball, who's the head of arts, and Louise Highland, who is his immediate junior. We also had a meeting with the Arts Council of Northern Ireland it was with the chief executive and I think it was 7 or 8 of the most senior staff there, basically people who are involved in strategy. That meeting was very difficult, and there in the initial meeting there was a lot of pushback against the points that were brought up in the discussion paper. However, when the Arts Council attended the meeting with the Derry City and Strabane District councillors a little bit later on the timeline, and the lobbying subgroup were present at that, the Arts Council took a very different tone, and actually the chief executive also acknowledged that there was a structural problem and that it needed to be addressed. Could we have the next slide, please? We, on the foot of those meetings, the lobbying group developed a paper which was based on the discussion paper, but in a more proactive form. We developed a submission paper so that we had something to give to the minister that she could then place on file at DFC as a as a reference point for when the terms of reference or the planned strategy was being designed, and also for content in that strategy when it was written. So we developed that paper collectively, also in consultation with the wider sector. Again, the 30 plus organisations were all kept informed of that. Went through multiple drafts, lots of backwards and forward to make sure that it was representative, not just of a small group of people, but of the wider sector in the this geographical area. We developed that document and submitted it to the Minister DFC, Deirdre Hargey, before Christmas 2021. And we copied it to the arts and culture staff, John Ball and Louise Highland at DFC, and the senior management and board of the Arts Council in Northern Ireland. And also we copied it to regional arts sector organisations such as Theatre and Dance NI, etc., and to local MLAs, political party leaders, and the culture spokespeople for political parties at Stormont, and also to the offices of the Northern Ireland executive members. The paper was written in the form of multiple suggestions rather than demands, and that was done consistent with an early decision by the lobbying subgroup in early on in the process in 2021, where we wanted to prioritise, at least initially, a collaborative discursive approach to addressing the issue rather than an oppositional one. We wanted to get the paper on file before any change of minister that might follow the local elections in May, and we also wanted to get in early enough so that parties, and particularly party spokespeople on arts and culture or on the Department of Communities brief, would be able to consider the issue in the development of their policy manifestos for the May elections. The document was accompanied by letters and emails which asked that the recipient might consider meeting with us to discuss the matter further. So the current situation that we're in at the moment is that we have received several acknowledgements and a couple of offers to meet from recipients. We haven't had replies from all of the people that we sent out the submission paper to. Particularly, we haven't heard back from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, although I do know that they're very, very busy and also have COVID-related problems, like many. So we've had responses back from John Ball just today, actually. John Ball at DFC acknowledged in the paper. It's a kind of holding letter, but it does acknowledge the issue and welcomes further engagement on the issue. And we've also had responses from 3 of the local MLAs, Gary Middleton, Sinead McLaughlin and Ciara Ferguson, all inviting us to meet them to discuss the issue. In terms of, could we have the next slide up, please? In terms of future actions, we would like to coordinate with the Business and Culture Committee on this, particularly because it's very important. We found from the early meeting with the Arts Council of Northern Ireland that we were perceived as, because we were just in a way perceived as without political clout or backup. I think that's one of the reasons why that meeting didn't go very well. And then the meeting, when we had the meeting with the city and district councillors present, that the whole thing was taken a little bit more positively. So we think it's very important to keep coordinating with the Business and Culture Committee, also because I know that there are other issues around the perception of or established inequalities in the way in which this city and district is treated. So we want to try to influence party manifestos. we want to connect the structural inequality in the arts to broader inequalities, which have been well demonstrated in education, transport, and infrastructure. And very important thing which we need to do is to collect much better and updated qualitative and quantitative data on the structural inequality in the arts. And we also would like, related to the first point, that we establish the recognition of the co-delivery group, particularly the lobbying subgroup within it, within the wider arts and democratic process, so that this kind of engagement from the arts sector, individuals and organisations, the arts sector, coordinated and with the legitimacy of local democratic processes, becomes more normalised. So we'd like to get the support of the Business and Culture Committee in going ahead with following up the emails that were not responded to, and checking the document obviously was received by people and asking for meetings with relevant people. And we would also like support in any response that we now go ahead with in response to the letter that we got from the Department for Communities from John Ball at the Department for Communities, which we received today. A few further points before I finish. We've had success in getting past the usual defensive use of poor data and poorly formed arguments that defend the status quo. However, in spite of that, like we have managed to get it acknowledged at a political level that there is an issue, and we have managed to avoid going around the endless discussion about this figure and this figure and that figure and this figure, and arguing about poorly formed and poorly collated and poorly interpreted statistics. However, we do think that we would anticipate that there would be some resistance to addressing the issue of inequality, or a continuation of a tendency to ignore it. And so we probably do need to try to develop some statistical information, statistical backup to make our point strongly founded when it's challenged. And we need to get good data that goes beyond headline figures, because those headline figures always just invite argument and counterexamples. I don't think we know really how we would go about getting good information on that. What I've seen is available so far has not been great. We need reliable and rigorously sourced data, and we saw in our meeting with the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, the first meeting, that they attempted to present data which was very, very poor. It wasn't well presented and it wasn't well founded, but they did get into a kind of defensive statistical arguments in response to the points that we were putting forward. And I think we need to have better data, as I think they do as well. So the other thing is that we need non-reductive and non-statistical arguments that address the role of the city and district here as the second city and as a cultural centre historically, and as a centre for the broader cross-border Northwest region, so that the resourcing and the development issues are not just reduced to population numbers and per capita figures. So those are the things we want to do. And then just one final point that was a very strong experience for some people on the lobbying subgroup, that in our meeting with the Arts Council, there was a little bit of an experience of feeling that the heads were being put above the parapet, and as people who were senior in organisations which were clients of the Arts Council. And so I can't emphasise enough how important it is that the co-delivery group and the lobbying subgroup of that are publicly perceived as legitimate organisation with the legitimacy of being involved in the local democratic process. So that's the end of my presentation, and if there's any questions, then please don't hesitate to ask. I'm sure that Kevin and Lisa will be able to respond to questions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. So I'll now open up to the floor. And first on the list is Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that that presentation. I do think that the work that has been done this past year has been immense. There has been a lot of work done on this whole issue. I did attend the meeting of, I think it was the end of January 2021, and I'm very appreciative of the work that has been done thus far. I do think that the submission paper details everything. It gives very, very constructive suggestions rather than demands at this stage. So I do hope that there is a very positive reception of those suggestions, and that the five bullet points on the way forward are certainly all very, very important in their own right. But I suppose for me, the party manifesto, the actual data, the quantitative and quantitative structural inequality data that does exist needs to be collated, and the recognition of the co-delivery group is very, very important as well. And I suppose the tie-in with the Business and Culture Committee goes without saying. On the data, I would be making a proposal that we have statisticians within council, and I would be proposing that we engage those statisticians to work with yourselves in order to get qualified and very meaningful data that will help the case that is already evident out there. But if the data is needed to disqualify it, then I would be suggesting that. So that's a proposal. But just to finish off again, thanks very much for the work that has been done. I do want to acknowledge that the Minister and her department have, as you said in your presentation, recognised the inequalities that do exist, and that is a big major step forward in the admittance, I suppose, of that recognition of this inequality, and it can't be left to just sit on a shelf, and it can't be left the same as going forward. So all parties need to take cognizance of that recognition, and look forward to working with you all in the future. But I just want to say well done again for all the work that you have been involved in trying to do something about this very, very serious matter. But just a chair, just a recap, I am proposing that we work with the statisticians within council to get the information that they need. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Logue. That proposal has been noted. I'll now move on to our second speaker, Councillor Farrell, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Steve, for the presentation, and thanks, Kevin and Lisa, for being in attendance today. And in fact, thanks to every single member of the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group for the dedication and diligence they have shown in developing this document, which has a clear and comprehensive and concrete set of asks of the Minister for Communities. You're the experts. You're working in the sector day in, day out. You know firsthand the problems, and you've got a set of solutions which could work, which could improve the arts and culture scene right across our city and district. I'm not going to go through the submission with a fine-tooth comb, but there are 4 key highlights for the SDLP that we think could make a massive difference to our arts and culture sector. The first one is appointing a senior official within the Arts Council to address regional funding and strategic development imbalances. The second one is having an actual Arts Council office in this city. The third is a ring-fenced regional development fund. And the fourth is that, you know, there's government support for a regional arts festival in this city. These are all common sense solutions to the very complex problems that we face. As Steve said, we're the North's second city. We're the first city of culture, and we should be recognised as such. We should be supported as such, and we should be funded as such as well. At the minute, we're not. Belfast organisations get the lion's share of the funding and the lion's share of the support. And there has been discussion here about data, that we need more comprehensive data. And I would support Councillor Logue's proposal about getting the Council's economists on board to get more reliable data. But the data we have is stark, and it's coming from assembly questions that are answered to by Deirdre Hargey, the Communities Minister. Last year, in the 2021 tax year, organisations in Belfast got £23.3 million. Organisations in the Foyle constituency got £2.5 million, and that's funding directly from the Arts Council. In terms of DFC funding to the Arts Council, excluding lottery money, organisations in Belfast City Council area got 18.9 million, and organisations across our council area got 1.7 million. Whatever we look at it, Belfast is doing very well out of that current funding arrangement, and those funding allocations are a direct result of historical imbalances and the structural issues that we seek to address. So on behalf of the SDLP, I'd like to wholeheartedly endorse this document and wholeheartedly support this document, and to thank the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group for their efforts to date. And we will support you in whatever way we can. But I have a question to the Arts Manager, Aileen McCarter. We had a council motion back in July where we invited reps from the culture division within DFC and the minister to address council on regional inequalities and cultural spend. And we received a response in September stating that they welcomed the opportunity to discuss that motion at council, which we feel would have been a delegation to this committee. That was September. We haven't, as far as I'm aware, had any further feedback on that. So what we're talking about here is we've got a fantastic submission from the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group, which has clear, measurable actions on it. But to date, we haven't had much engagement from DFC. And we've got this document. We're awaiting a meeting from DFC. So I think it'd be really useful if we could get a date in the diary for that. So I would ask Aileen, has there been any further communication from the department on that meeting request or delegation request? Thank you.
Not yet. You'll recall that they did confirm that the strategy was the strategy was imminent, but we're happy to follow that up and reiterate the invitation to attend this committee. And I'm sure we'd be happy to extend that invitation if that's confirmed to the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group to come back. But we will certainly follow that up and take that as an action from this meeting.
Thank you, Aileen.
Thank you, Aileen. And thank you, Councillor Farrell. Next speaker is Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. And first of all, I want to thank Steve for an excellent presentation. And I want to thank everybody that's been part of the Arts and Culture Group that has worked on this. Steve and Lisa and Kevin are all here, but there's been a great team of people who have worked extremely hard and pushed on this. And the reason why we're having this discussion really is because of that effort. The people that have put in the time here and the work here, and the many others that have supported this initiative. And I think that this is an excellent example of people power, in the sense that this has not come, this document that we're discussing hasn't come from Stormont, it hasn't come from the department, it hasn't come from the Arts Council. It's been pushed for from below, from people here in Derry, from people here in the Northwest. And it's a crucial document, and it's a crucial campaign that's being pushed forward here. I also want to thank all our everybody that makes up our arts and culture sector, because as we know, they bring so much life to the city. They have had such an important impact on people's well-being right across the city. And that has been so important right through the pandemic. And it's also worth acknowledging that what we're trying to do here is give equality and sustainability to many of the great organizations that we have. But this is not just about organizations, this is about individuals, and about, do the people who make up our arts and culture sector, are they able to go home and pay their bills, the energy bills? Are they able to, can they be in a situation where they're not terrified that funding is going to disappear, in the next round? That's what this is really about, so that we can sustain it, but also protect the people that make up the arts and culture sector, and make sure that they have a decent life that reflects their contribution to Derry and the Northwest. And that's why this is so important. And the reason why I mentioned people power is because look, Steve, and I think it's very important that Steve has acknowledged and incorporates what's happening in the arts and culture in the framework of, this is not the only structural inequality that we face here in Derry, that it's part of the same, decades long, structural discrimination, if you want to call it that, to this region. Education, infrastructure, investment for jobs, they're all there, and it's very true of arts and culture as well. And this has been proved now, I think, through the documentation, through the evidence that's been given, that there is structural inequality. And I suppose what I mean about having to push, it's that I mean, in a sense, look, the Department for Communities, the Communities Minister, and the Arts Council had to admit that there was structural inequality, and it doesn't seem like that's ever been agreed to, and that's why this is a very, very important point that we've arrived at. So now we need something done about all this, and I think I want to endorse Steve's proposal, which is that the Business and Culture Committee really see itself as a partner to the co-delivery group in making sure that the proposals in the document should be fully followed through on. And not just the Business and Culture Committee. I mean, this really should be the job of the entire council, to not parcel this off, but to see this as part of the thing that the council advocates for. I mean, I look at those proposals, and that's really a manifesto to undo the legacy of structural inequality that has impacted our arts and culture organization and workers for a long time, and they actually set it up so that there's a sustainable future. So, from People Before Profits point of view, we commend the work that's been done. We are glad that there's now an agreement that there is an acknowledgement that there's structural inequality. We think that there's a set of proposals here, if acted on, would make a tremendous, would bring meaningful change to our arts and culture sector. But it is going to require more push, and because it'll be great to get this into manifestos, to get it acknowledged, but then there's the other side of this next election, and as we know, promises are often too easily broke, especially ones that are made to Derry and the Northwest. So I think that there has to be a commitment that we, given where people like Steve and Lisa and Kevin have pushed us to, that we actually take the responsibility on as a council of making sure that this is followed through on and delivered as much as possible. So again, thanks to everybody that's got us here.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Next on the list is Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and can I just say thanks to Steve for a good presentation, and welcome Steve, Kevin and Lisa to the meeting. I think I've listened intently to the presentation, and it really puts the finger on where the structural inequalities are. And I have to say, we've known this for years, but look, listen to the conversation going through. I do believe, yes, that the data and the stats can be skewed sometimes, but I have to say what we really need is help now from our council, whether that's statisticians or through this committee, that we get those stats and data right and get them updated. And look, I've listened to around your submission paper. As you said, they have been very constructive asks. They haven't been demands. And I would like to put on record from our party, the DUP, that we support the good work carried out here by the Arts and Culture Co-Delivery Group and everyone involved in it, keeping that fight forward about inequalities. And really, when you look at the figures between Belfast and the Northwest and the city here, they get nearly 10 times more money than what the groups, arts and culture get down here in the Northwest, and I think that's an inequality that needs to be addressed. I do believe Councillor Farrell has some merit, a lot of merit, and they asked for a senior official and especially an office in the city to deal with all this. And really what's going to try and sort all of this out is funding. And I do believe we as a council and as a committee here should be doing all we can to support this group and putting the argument forward in relation to the inequalities. But finish up by saying just thanks for the presentation and keep the good work up. And I do understand that you're about to meet with our MLA Gary Middleton, MLA and Junior Minister, regarding this. Look forward to that meeting and seeing some of the questions being asked there. And look, we will be giving our support to you as we move forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Next, Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, for permission to come in, as I'm not a member of the committee. Kevin, Lisa, Steve, very welcome. Steve, excellent presentation. How's it going, Kevin? This has been a while since we engaged, and the story doesn't change. We're left, the ladies will excuse the expression, sucking the hind, etc. And it has to be addressed. But one thing that does concern me, and Councillor Farrell won't be surprised when I say he talked about an office in the city, he talked about a festival in the city. I'm sure that was a slip, be it Freudian perhaps, when he says, an officer in our council area, an office in our council area, a festival in our council area, because we ourselves must not be guilty of internal council area imbalance. And other members will have heard me before expressing the concerns that the rural remainder can sometimes be overlooked with regards to the overall arts and culture life of our entire district area. So it's just to remind people of that and trust that we all ships will rise on the tide as it comes in. But I definitely agree that the door needs to be knocked to allow that tide to come in from our government departments up the road in Belfast. It's time we got our fair share, but when we get it, it's time to also make sure that it is appropriately distributed throughout our entire district area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to thank
I can't hear, Chair.
Gary, can you
For
turn the camera?
the presentation.
Sorry, Councillor Donny, can you hear me?
The proposals.
Councillor Donny.
You know, we know what's
Councillor
wrong
Donny, can you hear me?
here. The diagnosis has already been
Councillor Donny. Seem to have lost Councillor Donny's connection. So what I'll do is I'll move on to Councillor Rivenbar. Yep. Councillor Donny, I'll move on to Councillor Rivenbar and come back to you, sure, in a couple of seconds. Just move on to Councillor Rivenbar.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, again, I'd like to thank Steve for this excellent presentation. Obviously, the disparity in funding is huge and needs to be addressed. So I too would like to endorse the document, and I'd also like to endorse Alderman Hussey's comments there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Barr. I'll try Councillor Donnelly again. Councillor Donnelly.
Hello, Chair, can you hear me?
Yep. Go on ahead there, Councillor Donnelly. Yep.
Chair, I seem to be having so many problems. Apologies.
I can hear you now. Yep.
Sorry, Chair. Look, I'll just keep it short and sweet, and apologies for the AT problems there. Look, I'd like to thank for the proposal and the presentation. You know, it's my view that diagnosis has been made. It's discrimination.
Lost you again there.
We apologies, Chair. Look, I'll just support the. I just want to support the proposals and wish them well in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. I don't seem to see any more members looking to speak in the chat, so we'll draw this item to a close. So once again, thanks very much, Kevin, Steve, and Lisa, for coming along today and for the presentation. So thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, members, next item on the agenda is Chair's business. I've just one contact about this, which is Councillor Farrell. So Councillor Farrell, if you want to come in there.
Thanks, Chair, and apologies in advance if this upsets or annoys or offends you as a Tyrone man. But I'd like to recognise and welcome Steelstown's historic victory in the Ulster Intermediate Club Championship there at the weekend. In winning that trophy, Brian Oakes became the first club from our city to win that championship. It was a memorable and momentous occasion for all involved and for Gaelic games across our city. So I'd like to send the SDLP and hopefully the council's congratulations to Hugh McGrath and Neil Foster and their team, the club, the board, and the supporters for a massively well done job. Last year has seen unprecedented success for teams from right across this city and district. Tyrone won the All-Ireland, Derry Miners won the All-Ireland, and now we have a club from the heart of Ballyarnett in Brian Oakes winning the Ulster Intermediate Championship. GAA is alive and well and flourishing right across our city and district. And I know that the Mayor had previously agreed to recognise Steelstown won in the Derry Championship. He now has to recognise their won in the Ulster Championship, and hopefully a win in the All-Ireland Championship, which is coming up at the end of this month. So fingers crossed, we have more to celebrate in the future, but massive well done to Steelstown, Brian Oakes and the entire organisation there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Item number 7 now is matters arising from the open minutes of the Business and Culture Committee held on Tuesday, the 7th of December 2021, from pages 19 to 34. And just before I let any members in, I'm going to pass over to Aidan here, who has an update from BC 210/21.
It's just for information, members, in relation to that application and to the Access and Inclusion Programme. We've received a letter of offer just last week confirming that the applications for the Dennett Valley Health Network, the City of Derry Rugby Club and the Alley Theatre and Visitor Information Centre in Strabane applications were successful. Some of those applications obviously were not successful, and we're seeking feedback with a view to resubmitting those as quickly as possible. But it was a good opportunity, members, to give you an update on that letter of offer that was received just last week. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me in there.
Thank you, Aidan. And as of yet, I don't see anyone else looking. Oh, Councillor Harkin on BC 208/21.
Thank you again, Chair. This is just, I'm asking really for an update about the special meeting with the Trade Union Council to discuss their survey. And I think, you know, with so much in the news about labour shortages and you know, the challenges that our health and social care workers are facing, I think it's very important that we have this special council meeting. I think it's crucial that we are having discussions right now about what workers across the district are facing, and obviously the COVID has had compounded that challenge for them right now. So if we could just get an update, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll pass over to Stephen here for that update.
Thank you, Chair. That's with committee section, so I will double check as they'll be arranging dates and trying to get a suitable time for everybody. So I'll get members an update for members as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Alderman Hussey on the same issue.
Thanks for letting me, Chair. It's just Councillor Harkin will remember that I asked that a copy of the survey itself would be made available, and the local TUC hopefully can be made aware of that. I think it's important that we have all the information in front of us when we deal with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Alderman Hussey. Anyone else? Any matters arising? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Nope. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 8, which is the Peace Plus nominations of Partnership Board and update, which is pages 35 to 38, and this is taken by Kevin. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, members. Members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update in relation to the progress in terms of the Peace Plus theme 1.1 program development, and to seek nominations, elected members nominations onto the new Peace Plus Partnership Board. Members will be well aware that our council has recently completed delivery of the Peace 4 programme, and actually just as recently as September of 21 we took steps to start the closure process in terms of the old Peace 4 Partnership Board. Time flies when you're working hard, and now we're in the process of developing a new Peace Plus board, working with the SUPB and stakeholders to develop the structures that will help us co-design the new Peace Plus strategy. We have, since the writing of this paper before Christmas, received a further update from SUPB in terms of some broad timescales, and we're led to believe that by the beginning of Q2 of this calendar year, SUPB will be calling on councils and partnerships to start the development of their plans and strategies. We're hoping that in advance of that, we'll know what our allocations are. If members remember, in the last Peace 4 round, we received an allocation in around €7 million. At this stage, we know that the total programme for this priority is somewhere between 90 and 110 million pounds. So we'll obviously want to be in a good position to bid into that. We've taken a number of papers around the structure and around the co-design that we've done to date. The purpose of this paper is basically to formalise that, to let you know that our thinking currently is that our Peace Plus partnership will be made up of around 34 representatives. That's representatives from local growth partnerships, an open call across thematic areas, statutory representatives, and obviously yourselves in terms of elected representatives. I'll not go through all of the paper, but that's a fairly good update in terms of where we're at. And so what we're asking you today to do is to formally approve that structure and to nominate the 12 representatives I've set out, so that we can move forward in terms of bidding into the process. And if you're not in a position to nominate today, we can take those nominations between now and full council. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And I'll just go to the chat here. So see, Alderman Devaney is nominating Alderman McClintock on behalf of the DUP. And then our next speaker is Councillor Cusack. Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Kevin, for the report and all the work that's been done to date on this. Obviously, it's a major project and so many people benefit from it, especially in the city and district. So getting the balance right and getting the representation right is very, very important. But that's not to say that, not everybody has a means to feed into the Peace Plus. So just to moving on quickly, just on behalf of the SDLP, I'd like our three nominations would be Councillor Rory Farrell, Councillor Angela Dobbins, and Councillor Stephen Edwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair, and we've no problem supporting the proposal. I would just want to state that, it is welcome, and we welcome the Northwest Ministry of Youth has established a membership, and we would also propose that youth organisations in the neighbourhood renewal areas are formally approached to ask them to call out to do a similar call to allow input from young people from those areas who would benefit from the Peace Plus programme. So I would be asking if that could be included, please. And also we will be nominating at a later date. Thank you.
No problem. Councillor Lowe will make sure that proposal is included also.
Chair, just a point of order before you move on. How many nominations can we make at this? I just would like to see, do we have 3 places as well? Because if we do, I would like, I'd like to nominate later at full council. Just clarification on that.
Okay, bear with me. Alderman Devaney, I'll get that clarified. 2 seconds.
You want me to come in on that, Chair? Around the nominations?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, so I mean, the paper sets out, so it's 3 Sinn Féin, 3 SDLP, 3 DUP, 1 UUP, 1 Alliance, 1 People Before Profit. And it's fine to do this. And, the Peace Manager will send out an email at which you can, informally give your nominations, and that'll be ratified at full council at the end of the month.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kevin. So next on the list is Councillor Harkin. Councillor Harkin, you're happy enough to put forward Maeve O'Neill? Yep, that's fine. And then next on the list is Councillor McGowan.
I think it's a really good paper, and I want to just commend Kevin for the work that he's done on this. I believe you know, they're not it's on 3.5 there. It gives the makeup of the 12 positions, but just reiterate what Patricia said there regarding the younger people. It is essential that we get a really good across the community, across different age groups as well. But I just think it's a really fantastic piece of work by Kevin and his team, and I just really wish him the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Councillor McGowan. I don't see any more indicated speakers, so I'm sure if you heard Kevin there, if you're not nominated today, you can nominate by full council at the end of the month for those. So I need a proposer and a seconder for this item, please.
So proposed, Alderman Devaney.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Logan, Alderman Devaney. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is item number 9, radio advertising, pages 39 to 40, and this will be taken by Aileen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update on the local regional radio landscape and to inform you of the process Council adopts for purchasing radio station advertising to maximise the reach and impact of local, regional, national campaigns in light of learnings from other councils. In order to determine if radio advertising or indeed any advertising is value for money, it's imperative to look at the cost and the target market or listenership. The key information is on the number of listeners, their location, and further information on their demographics, such as age. The vast majority of radio stations who sell advertising are doing so on a commercial basis and provide independent verification of their audience. For most stations, this is done through Radar in the UK and Ipsos Mori in the Republic of Ireland. Council have been approached by a number of newer digital radio stations selling advertising who are unable to provide independently verified audience data. It is therefore not possible to assess value for money or best fit with marketing campaigns. Council's marketing team have been researching digital and analogue radio listenership and trends across Northern Ireland in order to gather evidence and inform decisions for targeted marketing campaigns. The majority of other councils use Radar or equivalent figures to assess radio advertising proposals. There does not appear to be similar data available for digital-only stations. To this end, it's proposed that this council continue to use Radar or equivalent, that is independently verified data relating to audience by geography and demography. There are a number of community radio stations that operate throughout Northern Ireland who don't have the resources to pay for Radar verification. These stations are generally, however, registered charities and provide a full schedule of community-focused content which can be easily assessed. It's proposed that with the provision of evidence of charitable status and an assessment of programme and content fit, that advertising proposals from these stations can also be considered. Council officers will continue to monitor the information emerging on digital broadcasting and consider proposals from such stations with independently verified figures to bring to members. Members, just in terms of rural needs in particular, some rural areas in our district and across Northern Ireland generally have poor broadband connectivity, and residents in these areas may struggle to access digital radio channels, which has a knock-on implication in terms of advertising campaign impacts. Research shows us that analogue radio is still more popular in Northern Ireland than digital, so radio stations offering this output will have a better reach for audiences in rural areas. Best value for money and keeping campaign objectives reaching target audiences is critical. Radar or equivalent figures offer the most reputable, measurable insights and measurements for radio advertising. Members, it's recommended that Council continue to use Radar or equivalent figures to determine which commercial radio stations offer the best value for money for the target audience. And it is also important, to support local community radio stations, that consideration be given to proposals from these once they are a registered charity and provide a full schedule of community-focused content.
Thank you for that, Aileen. We'll move it out to members. So Councillor Farrell first, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aileen, for the report. I'm happy to propose this item on behalf of the SDLP, which seeks to deliver value for money for our ratepayers in terms of radio advertising costs, and I support the approach, which could include local community radio stations, presuming they meet certain conditions. But I have a question on advertising and value for money, but it's not about radio. It's about billboards. My earphone goes out. About billboards that we use across the city and district. It's been brought to our attention that we're spending money advertising on billboards that are externally owned when there's local providers that could provide better value for money with digital solutions at key locations across the city and district. Is our council open to discussions with local providers to understand their capacity, reach and value for money, which will ultimately save money for the local ratepayers and reduce our advertising costs? Thank you.
Yep, you want to come back in?
Yeah, the answer to that is absolutely. Yep, we're open to proposals from any providers, but again, they'll be assessed, I suppose, in terms of value for money and generally in terms of reach. You know, it's not just cost, obviously, that we assess, but absolutely, yeah, we're happy to take proposals, and indeed, we do regularly. So I would encourage anybody that provides those services to contact us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Aileen.
Thank you, Aileen. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and thank you, Aileen, for bringing forward the recommendation here. Our party has no problem in supporting it. I'm happy to second the proposal. It's good. You have mentioned, Aileen, there about poor rural broadband. We all know the issues, and radio becomes part and parcel of how some people receive their information. And I also take on board the issue raised previously there just about billboards. I think we should be doing all we can and welcoming those as well if they're providers, and as you say, value for money if they meet the criteria and the assessment. But happy to second the proposal.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aileen. And I know this item has been proposed and second, and on behalf of our party, we have no problem in supporting that. However, I would like to suggest that maybe if we could write a letter to the Culture and Media and Sport Department, asking them, have they any plans to develop a mechanism to record the digital station figures. I do think that this would be very useful if they did so. If that could be included, please, in the minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. We'll get that action, no problem. Any more speakers on this item? Nope, and that has been proposed and seconded. Thank you. Moving on now to the next item on the agenda, item number 10, which is the Ulster History Circle Blue Plaque Programme, pages 41 to 60. And again, this is taken by Aileen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, members, the purpose of this report is to seek your approval on a proposed programme for the erection of a series of Ulster History Circle blue plaques in this council area. The Ulster History Circle is a small voluntary not-for-profit organisation that places commemorative plaques in places to honour men and women who've contributed to the province's history. Plaques are recorded with the permission of the owner of the building, and it celebrates the 9 counties' contribution to the history both locally and internationally. It is a voluntary run organisation which does not have funding and relies on businesses and local authorities to fund its programme. The committee contains a range of expertise and takes nominations for plaques to commemorate people who meet their criteria. The general rule is that a proposal to put up a plaque is not considered unless the person to be commemorated has been deceased for at least 20 years, less if the deceased person was born more than 100 years ago. Members, you will be aware that this council funded a 5-year blue plaque programme from 2017 to 2021. Full details of that are attached in the appendix, but blue plaques were delivered to Frances Ledwidge, Annie Russell-Maunder, Mrs. E.H. O'Doherty and Brigadier General Ambrose Ricardo. There was a 5th plaque dedicated to Dorothy Park, which wasn't erected as part of this 5-year programme due to the restrictions around COVID coming in. So the Ulster History Circle intend to pick this up with the other backlog of plaques early in this year, hopefully restrictions permitting. For the next programme, the following list of candidates are proposed for blue plaques. That is Redmond Friel Dorothy Park, again left over from the previous round, James McCafferty, Alexander Ector Orr, Joseph Locke and Sarah Doherty. It's proposed that the plaques to Redmond Friel, Dorothy Park and James McCafferty will be unveiled between February and April of this year. due to key anniversary dates falling in this period. However, the Ulster History Circle are mindful, like the rest of us, that there may be further restrictions in place, but we're very hopeful that they will be installed. Edita Redmond Friel was a musician, composer and teacher, and it's proposed to locate this plaque at Chapel Road Primary School in the Waterside, where Friel was a pupil, teacher and a principal. That's to be in February. Dorothy Park was a teacher and composer. Her music pieces are still performed at the Feis, and her collection of songs by Winding Roads remains popular in many primary schools. While she was born in Dunfield Terrace in the Waterside, the house that she was born in is no longer there, so the proposal is to erect this plaque during the 100th anniversary of the Feis at St Colum's Hall, with the agreement of the Hall's trustees. James McCafferty was a musician who also had strong affiliations with the Feis, and the Ulster History Circle have again agreed that the plaque will be unveiled at Francis Street this April, again as part of the 100th anniversary of the Feis. There are no relevant issues, and the cost is for the erection of a single blue plaque is now £5,000. This includes research, obtaining the building owner's permission, manufacture, production of the plaque, and the associated PR and marketing for the launch event. Therefore, the total cost for these 5 plaques in the current scheme is £5,000, which can be accommodated within the current museum services budget. And members, you're asked to approve the Ulster History Circle programme as indicated for a series of blue plaques across this council area.
Thank you, Aileen. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aileen. Again, I think it's right that we as a council remember our sons and daughters from across the city and district for their historic efforts and endeavours. And I understand, there were delays in the programme due to COVID, and that's completely understandable. And the programme that we have for the next 5 years, we've got Redmond Fields, Dorothy Park, James McCafferty, Alexander Ector, Joseph Locke, and Sarah Doherty. And I particularly welcome the James McCafferty and Dorothy Park, who have clear connections to the Feis, that their plaques are going to be erected during the 100th anniversary of the Feis this year. So happy to propose the item on behalf of the SDLP, and thanks to the Ulster History Society for all their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, and I concur with the previous speaker, and I'll second the item. It's only right that we celebrate those who have added to the culture of our city and district, and I feel that every person is a worthy recipient of blue plaque. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Guy. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, we'll move on now to item number 11, which is the update on Labour Market Partnership LMP, pages 61 to 128, and this is taken by Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update in relation to the local labour market partnerships, their formation, and the fact that we're now in receipt of a number of letters of offer in relation to the delivery of the labour market partnership model. Obviously, we have been updating members over this last 6 or 7 months around how we've been developing our interim action plan, setting up our interim labour market partnership, and the process that we've been going through in relation to the Department for Communities in that regard. Just to refresh members' memories, the aim of the LMP is to improve employability outcomes and labour market conditions locally by working through coordinated, collaborative, multi-agency partnership engagement in the provision of employability services, and doing this in a very much in a co-design and a co-commission basis. As previously agreed, by council, we had been shadowing the Education and Skills Delivery Partnership with the interim LMP and had developed a draft action plan. That action plan is included in the appendices of this report. As we move now to the delivery phase of the action plan and in preparation for year 2, it'll be important and necessary to formalise that LMP over the next number of months in order to deliver on the project. We have, just before Christmas, received 2 letters of offer, one from to help us set up the internal structures that are going to be needed as we ramp up in terms of delivery. It's important to recognise that we do have a small and existing skills team, but one which is focused on delivery of existing priorities. We also need to take into account the additional pressures that are coming on in relation to the delivery of employability and skills outcomes from our city deal and the delivery of the employability and skills pillar. And then we also need to understand where our current pressures are in terms of delivering a number of other projects. So what we are proposing to do is to review our existing provision in line with the delivery of the existing priorities and these new priorities from LMP, with a view to establishing the new team over the next 2 to 3 months. We're also in receipt of the letter of offer to deliver on the action plan at some £586,500, which is really welcome. I will say that given the timescales in terms of receipt of letters of offer, we are going to be under substantial pressure in terms of the timescales. DFC are well aware with that, and I'm sure are willing to work with us in that regard. But I just think it's worth noting that we need to be realistic in terms of what we can deliver in this financial year. So in terms of the LMP, where the guidance that's been issued from DFC is included in item 3.5 in terms of the representation on that LMP. Additional membership should reflect the local needs identified in the strategic assessment, and then the actions are outlined in the action plan itself. And obviously each local LMP has its own specific characteristics, and so there is flexibility in relation to everything that I'm saying. So the main recommendation is that members note the contents of the report and give officers approval to proceed with the signing of the letters of offer, and agree that we establish the LMP, and we'll be able to bring back further update papers as we progress on this, which is going to become a major priority for the skills team within council.
Thank you very much for that. Kevin, have we any speakers? Yep, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and welcome the report coming forward here. I do take on board the issues on around letter of offers. The worrying thing for me, Kevin, is you've quite rightly stated there, with 586,500 to spend before the 31st of March, and it is very tight. So it is, and I'm confident that you and your team will be working tirelessly to spend all of this money. But do you believe, Conor, this money can be spent before the 31st? Look, the last thing we need is money being sent back, or is there a bit of flexibility within the department that would allow us a bit of time? Because we're into the second week of January here now, and it is a very tight. But I'm happy to propose the recommendation here, Chair, but just would like to hear Kevin's thought, and would he be confident in spending that type of money?
Kevin, do you want to go back on that?
I was just waiting to see whether you were going to go with any other questions. I mean, there's 11 councils, each council. We were one of the first, obviously, to receive the letter of offer. I mean, it's envisaged this is going to be a multi-annual program, and we're a mainstreamed way to deliver on the skills priorities from a local perspective. So I certainly welcome the fact that we're in receipt now of the letters of offer. I welcome that our action plan has been approved. I think it gives us the opportunity and the ability to really deliver on local needs. So so that would be the first point I would make. In terms of deliverability, we will a lot of the well, the majority of the actions that are delivered will be procured. They're contracted out, so we'll have to look at the market, see what bids come in, and look at the timescales. I do believe that there's a lot of goodwill in relation to how we move forward on this. This is obviously a new way of working, and I think that all parties are well aware of some of the challenges that exist. What I would say is that we are a prominent member on the NI-wide employability working group, and we've raised these issues with officials over this last number of months, and we've always been given a good positive hearing in that regard.
Thank you, Kevin. You happy enough with that, Alderman Devaney?
Yep, thanks, Kevin, for that. Yep.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kevin. And it's not often I would agree with Alderman Devaney, but I'm going to agree with him here on this occasion. I was basically going to ask the same question as Morris. So it's January. We've got a letter of offer, which is welcome, and that's positive news. But we're meant to be spending the staff cost of 140k by the end of March, and the delivery cost of well over £500,000 again by the end of March. There obviously are certain challenges associated with that. If we don't spend it by the end of March or have a commitment to spend it, has DFC given any indication in terms of rolling that funding into next year? Because it's not that long ago at Health and Community that we had a similar discussion about the Financial Inclusion Fund, where they had given us money. I think it was around 85 grand that we couldn't spend, with the very tight criteria laid down by the department. And we have made the argument that we will be spending it next year if you let us roll it over. So have any of those discussions taken place as a contingency measure? Happy to second the item, by the way.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. If you want to answer that, sure, Kevin, you can.
Yeah. In terms of the staff costs, now I would say that we're able to backdate some of a lot of the existing work that's gone on to that, so we'll be able to claim prior to the receipt of this letter of offer. Yes, we have opened up the discussions in relation to that, and we haven't been told that we can't, that's not the case yet, because the LNP is a policy now. I think that we're in a strong position. I haven't got it in writing yet that we can roll this over. So look, we'll ask that question again. We'll look at I think we've an employability meeting in the next week or so. So I'm sure it'll be high on the agenda in terms of deliverability. As I said, we're not the only council that's delivering in this manner. So I haven't got a written guarantee just yet, but I think that the goodwill that exists, the work that's been done, will stand us in good stead in relation to making sure that we can maximise this going forward.
Cheers, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor McGowan.
I'm happy to endorse both the recommendations that Kevin has made. I think we've got to welcome any funding we get, and this funding is actually targeting the people furthest. We hope it is from the labour market, and we know there's quite a few of them. So I just want to endorse it and support it. Again, I suppose with a time scale, you always worry, but if Kevin's confident enough, and if there's a bit of flexibility with that, then let's just get on with it. I would emphasise that we should try to target those, and I believe that is the case anyway from reading it, those furthest from the labour market. And we should maybe learn some of the good lessons that we had from the Community Works programme. So I'm happy to support it, and I suppose leave it with Kevin and his team to get it procured and get it delivered.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan. So anybody else looking to speak? No, and that has been proposed by Alderman Devaney and seconded by Roy Farrell. So moving on to our next item then, item number 12, which is open for information. If anyone wants to indicate in the chat box now, if they'd like to speak on this item. Seems happy enough, that's fine. So we'll now move on then to confidential. So we'll just wait until the live stream has been switched off.